Welcome to Utah Bankruptcy Questions and Answers. This is a video series where we answer questions about filing bankruptcy in Salt Lake City, Utah. I'm attorney Amy Butters, and I hope you find this series informative and helpful.
Now this is video 4, the different chapters of bankruptcy. So we're going to start with probably the most common chapter, which is chapter 7, often called a straight bankruptcy or a liquidation. And here's how it works basically, and then I'll expound on that a little bit. Essentially, non-exempt property is surrendered so that it can be sold to pay for debts. Now, it needs to be said that most people don't surrender much, if anything at all. Very valuable property and property with liens could be surrendered, but the typical household dealing with a bankruptcy doesn't have anything of significant value that isn't already protected by the bankruptcy laws. Now, this video is not where we're going to talk about that. In a later video, we have one that deals with what are called exemptions, and those are the exceptions to the rule for property, so you know what's protected and what's not. And Chapter 7 is often referred to as a fresh start, and that's because your legal obligation to pay those debts back is wiped away, and you no longer are obligated to pay anything back whatsoever. So that's why it's called a fresh start. Slate is clean at that point. Now, some facts about it. It does stay on your credit report for 10 years. And this is something that we touch on in one of our credit videos where we talk about the importance of dealing with credit after bankruptcy. But, you know, as far as from a factual standpoint, it is on there for 10 years. Chapters 11 and 12 we're just going to run through really quickly because they're not really pertinent to an individual. They deal with a business. Chapter 11 deals with a business reorganization, and it's used by businesses or just a few individuals whose debts are extremely large. Chances are you don't fit into this category. And then in Chapter 12 is simply for family farmers and fishermen. Chapter 13 is a type of reorganization. It's like the 11, except it's for individuals or families. A Chapter 13 creates a payment plan based on taking your current income and figuring out how much of that income is left over after necessary expenses. Then that amount that's left over is it's determined whether or not you can pay back all or a portion of your debts in a period of 3 or 5 years. And all of those things together is what's called your plan or your bankruptcy plan. And it has to be completed within at least the 5-year time frame, but it could be the 3-year time frame. And you know, something that's important to know is that you're not necessarily in a position where you're going to be paying back 100% of your debt. If all that's left over after your expenses are figured out is enough to pay back, say, 10 cents on the dollar, then that's what your plan would end up being because it is based on leftover income. Chapter 13 is the most common method of stopping a foreclosure or a vehicle repossession. And this is one of the great features of a 13. Tax debts can be included in the plan, and interest charges stop accruing. We have a client right now who's going through that exact problem. For the last 5 years, he's been paying and paying and paying, and then he contacted the IRS thinking, gosh, it's been 5 years, surely my debt's been paid off. No, this whole entire time he's been paying interest charges and penalties. He hasn't even made a dent in his debt. Well, when we explained that to him, that the interest and the penalties stop the minute you file a Chapter 13, you should have seen the relief on his face. And you know, that's one of the great benefits that it can offer you if you're dealing with tax debts. Now, earlier in another video I mentioned that second mortgages, and really any junior lien, like a mechanic's lien for example, can be removed from title of your home and become an unsecured debt in a Chapter 13. And the reason for this is very, very simple. Everybody has to be treated equally in a bankruptcy. Well, if there's a second mortgage on a house and the first mortgage is more than the equity in the house, then there is no equity for the second mortgage. That means they are unsecured. Even though they're on title, there's no equity to secure them. And at that point, because there's no equity, then they need to be treated equally alongside all the other unsecured creditors. And so what ends up happening is the court issues an order to strip off that second mortgage from the house's title, and then that debt gets handled with all the other unsecured creditors. So to give you an example, let's say that your income that was left over dictated that you were only paying back 10 cents on the dollar to your unsecured debts. And let's say you have a $10,000 second mortgage that is completely upside down on your house. The lien strip would take that off of your title, and then it would get lumped in with all of your unsecured creditors, at which point you'd be paying back $2,000, or I'm sorry, $10,000. $1,000. You'd be paying back $1,000 of the original $10,000 balance because it is now part of the unsecured creditors. Now, if you enjoyed this video, but you feel like you still have some unanswered questions, don't worry, we've got you covered. We've actually created an entire video series that answers all the commonly asked questions about bankruptcy in Utah. Go ahead on over to our website, saltlakebankruptcylawyers.com, and there you'll be able to download our free ebook, and you'll be directed to our main website where the entire video series is located.